Welcome back. Our workshop leaders, as it were, are waiting in the wings. So let's just give them a round of applause as they come out and take their seats. Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. I'll hold on to this, and you should have some mics between you. You do. Perfect. So, we've had some incredible speakers, of which there are some sitting here. We've had some incredible workshops, hence you sitting here. We want the food. We want to see and hear what's been going on, and we want to be quick, and we really don't want to keep the gloves on. So let's take the gloves off, and let's go straight in, okay? So I'm gonna start with you first. Here we go. Okay, so give me the biggest insight from your session.
So not-for-profits, it's always going to come down to funding and resources, and how I obviously spoke about agility a lot, and how on earth can you be agile when you're faced with funding difficulties and a lack of resources. So there was a really great conversation about how we can start being more agile in the charity sector, and how we can bring our teams into that agility as well. So almost, we don't scare them off about having to be agile. Mm-hmm. We're bringing them into the wins, but also those moments then we're having to change, and that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I need my piece of paper because I'm not going to remember. Sorry. We were the SME room, and we actually identified the top 5 issues that are facing SMEs when it comes to achieving sustainable growth.
Right.
And these included leadership capacity, so just not enough time for leaders to do everything, attracting and retaining top talent into SMEs versus big corporates, nurturing female talent, evolving kind of operators into leaders at all levels in an SME, and embedding a culture to sustain growth.
Embedding a culture to sustain growth. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alex. I was working with Ben, the education group, so thanks so much for those who came along and spoke so generously. We focused on the idea of character being significant in education with regards to leadership development. These events today are wonderful, and I've tried to hold similar things myself in schools, but these one-off events don't stick, they don't last. And young children are going through this process where the scorching ordeals fire their irresolute clay. They're being formed, so it needs to be an ongoing, holistic process. We also talked about the need for the education curriculum to be transformed. There are too many young people who have been failed by the need to get certain grades on a report card, which has a very limited amount of subjects. And some young children can do well within that system, but many can't. Jamie Oliver's a hero of mine, and I've talked about him with other delegates today, and he's someone who was failed by the school system, but he was fortunate his parents owned a pub, and he was able to realize that he was really skilled at something, but too many young people don't have that arrangement at home. And we need more capacity for human approach to education to realize who's in the classroom. And it's not just young people who are good at math, good at English, good at history. We need young people who are good at listening, good at interpersonal skills, good at leadership stuff that we've been talking about today, which is relevant to the mid-21st century.
It's beautiful. I love that. The human element beautifully segueing onto
the human element. Hello, Sarah. I was with Atul, and we had a workshop on enterprise and the role of character and leadership. And we talked about lots of things, but I think one of the big insights was that, of course, character is important at every level, and that recruitment is critical. And that CV screening often looks at skills and capabilities, but it's much harder on a CV to demonstrate values, purpose, character. And that the introduction of AI for CV screening is likely to make that even worse. So one of our participants talked about the efforts that they're going to try and make the recruitment process longer, to allow for time to get to know the real human, and to allow the person to demonstrate in the way that is most appropriate to them who they really are. And that might be videos, it might be writing, it might be a voice message, it might be a different way of communicating than just a CV, but that taking the time to look for the true character of the person and the values that drives them is really going to pay dividends when you are thinking about recruitment, no matter what the level is in the organisation you're recruiting for.
Excellent. Mac.
Thank you. So in our group, we looked at how do you lead systems change? And we looked at the notion that the world's biggest problems, or any problem really at a national level, they're too complex. No one can solve, no government can solve alone, no business can solve alone, no philanthropist can solve alone. We need to come together for the long haul. And we introduced 3 or 4 concepts that can help you think through complex and systemic change. The first one was, the first starting point is work out what are my points of leverage in my system that will change everything. Mm-hmm. The second one is around how do I build a coalition? Mm-hmm. And how do I get to power? And the notion there we talked about was use your network to get to your network, to get to your network and build it out. But think about it from the outside in. Mm. And then we introduced a couple of techniques around how do you, if you want to change the world, solve something complex, you need to be amazing at taking people with you. Mm. So we introduced a technique called See, Hear, Speak. Okay. And also another which is about wherever you engage with someone, you see them, mm-hmm. you hear them, and then you earn the right to speak. Okay. And then we had a little tool on personal connection, a great way to create trust really quickly with people. And the group were amazing.
Good. So whilst you're there, the energy is there. So all that you've spoken about, that's great. But talk to me about the external resistance to the insights that emerged.
The resistance to the
insights that emerged. What's the external issues that prevent these things from happening? The very things that need to happen, what are they?
I think if you were to take a couple of them as examples, so how do I get to power mm-hmm. is something that loads of people struggle with. Mm-hmm. And I think just the way of using, so what I believe is if you cold call someone, mm-hmm. Like on LinkedIn or whatever, the chance of them responding to you is about 1%, right? It's very small. Yeah. But if you ask someone who knows that person to say, hey, could you meet this person? My experience is that you'll get a 99% success rate. Mm-hmm. So it's just about flipping the way we think about power and how you get to it. Mm-hmm. But if you're rigorous about it and put a lot of time into it and energy, you can get to anyone. Mm. So that's one of the things that we try to overcome with people. Okay. And a very quick other one is that it's really important to have mentors that really challenge you and help you become greater than you thought possible.
Mm. Okay, good. Sarah? External resistance.
Well, I think the resistance particularly in sort of character-led leadership is that if this hasn't been part of the organizational culture to date, it's likely that the leaders at the top will have been celebrated for skills and expertise, and often it's very difficult for them to explore other ways of leading. And so that there can be some resistance in valuing different styles of leadership. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that we talked about was self-awareness mm-hmm. and knowing what your strengths are mm-hmm. and recognizing that timing is critical. Mm-hmm. As another member put it, organizations at different stages need different styles of leadership. Mm-hmm. And that it may well be the case that the style that has got you here is not going to get you there. Yeah. And helping people recognize that without guilt or shame or judgment or anything else, but that this is part of what it means to be a good leader, is to recognize when it's your time to step aside and allow someone with different strengths to take over.
Very good. I want to build on that. So resistance, but also I want to talk about self-awareness. When we talk about as our teachers help form the identity of the children that we entrust to them, what's the resistance in? What's happening that's causing the very thing that you're very passionate about?
Nice, easy questions, that. Thanks.
Okay,
so I think this comes from the group as well, but from my own experience, a lot of young people, and this has surprised me, but when talking about leadership, they've often expressed a fear of that particular word, the L word. It's something alpha, something either that they don't feel is them, and that comes from all genders, but also it's something they don't want. They see it as something, the leader is someone who shouts at people, the leader is someone who is mean, the leader is someone who doesn't behave well but gets away with it. And that's really surprised me, but that's the reality of the hundreds of people that I've worked with and the feedback that many of them have given. So I think that's a key part of it. It's something that they detach themselves from. So I think we need to be really skillful in how we redefine leadership and what it means and how it's really important, and we all need to do it. And in terms of self-awareness, I think that comes down to character again. And so much of how young people are, behave, think comes from the home and the parents that they have and the grandparents that they have. And I'm fortunate in my career to have worked with thousands of parents, and many of them have just been absolutely amazing and really inspirational. Sometimes with parents who they mean well, but they don't have the hard conversations you need to have with your children. They want to be friends with their children, not parents with their children. That's when things can get really challenging for schools and teachers and those in education, because the parenting, the character work, if you like, is being outsourced. So I think that's a real challenge. There are tons of books, resources on parenting. I found as a parent, there's not one written on my kid. And I think we need to do work in society to include parenting as part of our leadership toolkit, and leadership part of our parenting toolkit.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to come on to you, but I'm just going to say, as a parent myself, I absolutely love what you've just said.
Thanks, Israel.
Thank you, really. Resistance.
Well, we didn't talk about that. So we didn't talk about what is the external resistance. We talked about these issues that face the SMEs and what we could do about it. But external resistance didn't come into our conversation. So
in your view, what do you think are the things that do come against the very things that you want to do with SMEs?
Look, there's a million things that constrain the growth of SMEs. Everything from capital to these 5 issues that are here. It is difficult to grow a small business. And so what we talked about was what were some of the ways that we could think about resolving these issues. And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody maybe it is, but it came down to, a lot of it came down to skills, having the right skills that you need in your organization for its stage of development, enabling people to grow, having confidence in yourself as a leader, enabling your people to develop confidence. Culture, obviously, is a big part of it, and styles. There are lots of different leadership styles. We had a group dedicated to nurturing female talent. And, of course, there needs to be an appreciation that people have different styles. Men and women have different styles. People from different backgrounds have different styles. And you need to make room for that in organizations. So
that's nice.
we really talked about those things. We didn't talk about external resistance.
That's good. Thank you.
I guess it's what I've already said in terms of the main barriers are funding and resources. Obviously, we're talking about leadership as well, which actually came up in our group when actually it was pointed out to me that I'm not a trained leader. I haven't grown within an organization and, risen through the ranks, learning a leadership style. I came at it from a self-employed position, and I've done lots of different things in my career that have all pieced together to come together and form Voices for Life. And since running Voices for Life, I have had to learn continually as I've gone along, learn what the challenges are, what the resistances are going to be, what the team's going to be like. And, the team is so varied. We've got people, the marketing and behind the scenes going on, and the events management, but I've also got the schools to manage and the freelance musicians to manage, the events to manage. It has been such a steep learning curve for me. And the key thing has been self-awareness. As I've gone along, and sometimes thinking, was that right? Did I approach that correctly? And I do take quite an honest approach when it comes to those external barriers. I won't tell the team everything, but I will be honest that it's not always easy, and that's okay, and we'll get through it. So it's really educating people to be able to cope with the ups and the downs and to celebrate the big wins and to have that adaptability, and also mentioned mentoring, being able to, we spoke a bit in our group about that connection and having people that you can go to advise you and help you and guide you on those areas you're not so sure about, so that when you're coming up across things that are, resisting what you want to do against your charitable purpose, you can seek that guidance elsewhere. It doesn't all have to be you.
That's good. So Tessa, since you're holding, we're going to kick off with you again. I've got another one coming at you. So in your session just now, can you help describe what was the mood in your group? Okay, and where were they on the accountability ladder? Blame, hope, weight, ownership. Where were they when you think of what the consensus was?
I think, and I go to a lot of not-for-profit sort of networking events, where there's small group discussions, and I mentioned it in the group as well, that it can be very tricky when not-for-profits get together because of the challenges in the sector, and we're all up against the same challenges, and we're often going for the same pots of money. So we're actually competitors as well as trying to help each other, and everyone is passionate for the cause. So I always think, in sessions like that, it is always funding. That is the first thing that's said, and that is really tricky, and it can be quite a heavy topic to be talking about. So, and I know I spoke a lot about hope in my presentation, because the reason I went into coaching, the reason Voices for Life is as it is, because I truly believe there's, a way of getting hope. And it would be great, to have that lift in the charity sector, because I think things are so hard. People are getting quite down. And that's quite hard to see. And they're trying to balance all these different things. You can't just collaborate with everyone, because you've got a charity purpose and you have to stick to it. There are things that you can't be that agile to.
Yes.
So I would say, but as we started talking, and we started talking about connection and drawing from other sectors, which is why events like this are so important. So you've got corporates and SMEs, education, you can get that advice and that help from others. Yeah. And I think that's really, really important.
Nice. Mood, and where were they on the accountability ladder, do you think?
I don't know. I think we were kind of a room full of pretty happy chappies. It was quite jolly in our room. So nobody was on a big downer. I think that everybody in the room, feel free to, I can't see if any of you were there because I can't see any of you. But I think that people were super positive, very energetic, very enthusiastic, super willing to do breakout groups and help one another. And in terms of some of the next steps that came out of the group, there was a really big, overwhelming one, which is, seek out coaches and mentors. Seek out people to coach and mentor. So there was a huge theme of the importance of connectivity, and people found a lot of connectivity today, both in our breakout groups and in the main sessions. So people were pretty positive.
So when you say seek out, that tells me that there's a minority that's not doing it at the moment.
No, not at all. Maybe let's say seek out more.
Okay.
But people would say, look, being here is an act of seeking out connectivity. And so, to solve some of these bigger issues, people need mentoring, so seek out opportunities to mentor people.
Nice.
People need mentors, seek out opportunities to get mentoring. So I think the takeaway was, let's all have more connectivity, but we weren't a doomy crowd by any stretch.
Okay, thank you. Alex?
Yeah, it was positive in our group. We didn't talk about money, unlike the not-for-profit, and we could have done. But I hope the group won't mind me saying that I think we experience an element of overwhelm, and it's not just because we're approaching the end of term, but there are a lot of problems there. We've got an education system which is doing some really great work, and the great work is being done by educators and by young people. They're achieving great things. We've made a lot of progress in terms of diversity, in terms of encouraging all learners, but at the same time, there are big problems. And I think we felt the overwhelming need to strip things down in many ways and to simplify. I teach English, and an oft-quoted poem that I encounter in my career is If by Rudyard Kipling, which said, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. And there are a lot of ifs, if, and it's a banger of a poem. I don't want to offend any Rudyard Kipling fans, but it ends with, and if you can do all this, then you'll be a man, my son.
Yeah.
And it's an unrealistic perception of masculinity. It's an unreal perception of what it means to be human. And I think, again, from the feedback I've received from my pupils, a lot of them feel like, I can't do this, I can't be a leader, I can't be a good human being because I have to do all these things that I'm told in the poems I hear in my English lessons or what I hear from history or different leaders. And I think we need to simplify things and we need to help young people and also those in education realize that weakness is strong and to embrace your own version of leadership. Be yourself, but with more skill. That's kind of what we concluded with.
Thanks, Alex. What I'm hearing, before I come to Sarah, what I'm hearing is one very passionate groups, and it's very clear. Myself and Steve did a walk around, and just the energy in each of the groups was really, really rewarding. But also what's really coming out is we use the term a lot, but I don't think it's being conveyed to the younger generation and even to entrepreneurs, like you said, who have not gone to leadership school, who haven't come out of an MBA. But they have grown something that's real and powerful, and it's growing. How do you learn the skills of leadership, the work of leadership? How do you understand that your identity and therefore your understanding of your awareness is massive? To be self-aware, system-aware is a huge thing. It's a huge thing. Sarah.
Thank you, and thanks for the permission to ignore the if poem. I tried to rewrite it for my daughter on her 16th birthday. There aren't that many words that rhyme with daughter. I forgot. Son's a lot easier, so...
He rewrote it.
Oh, did he?
Oh, he did, yes, he did.
I'll abandon the effort. All right, thank you. So our group, so it was a large group, and what we were trying to do was mine for stories. And actually what was really interesting on reflection, in response to your question is everybody who spoke had a story of where they had witnessed character-based leadership. Whether they were a senior person in an organization or a recent graduate talking about a tutor or their first job or whatever. Yeah. So I think we know it when we see it. And I don't think you need to have gone to leadership school or read 400 books or seen 2,000 TED Talks to understand what good leadership is, because it touches you as a human. So there is something deeply innate, I think, about what character-based leadership looks like. It's all the things we've been talking about today: trust, human connection, a genuine empathy and curiosity about others, a willingness to lift other people up and serve others. So these are things that we know from birth. And I think people recognize it when they see it. And seeing more of it and talking about more of it. One of the good things was I had a green pen and a red pen, and I was writing the positive stories with the green pen and the kind of negative traits in the red pen. Yeah. And I filled up the green pen chart quicker than the red pen.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's a very good start. Thank you. Mac?
I experienced incredible energy in the group, and everyone wanting to be a force for good. And so right at the top of the ladder, many know where they're going, and some are finding the journey, but they're taking ownership on it. And I think it's a microcosm of the world. We're full of people who want to be a force for good, to leave the world in a better place, and we just need to come together to do that.
Thank you. So I'm going to come back to you in a minute. So I'm just a quick, really push out to the audience. So you're listening to all of this. What is this meaning for you as leaders and potential people that can actually go from being the thermometer to the thermostat? That you can actually change the culture in your own oikos, whether it's family owned, whether you're a brand new entrepreneur, or whether you're someone that's already flying in leadership or senior leadership. What does this mean to you? Because if it doesn't mean something to you, it doesn't actually do what it's supposed to do. So as you're hearing passion and heart. A lot of you are in these workshops, but when someone talks about self-awareness, how does that show up for you? How do you demonstrate integrous, wholesome leadership through your own self-awareness? How self-aware are you? When someone talks about feedback, what does that mean to you? Do you run and hide, or are you someone that can actually understand how to give feedback and how to receive. So just some things to think about as we continue on our conversation here. So a couple more questions for you. As a leader, okay, I'm going to start here. As a leader, how do you cope with rejection? And do you tell your team?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, rejection sucks, right? However, having said that, if the worst thing that happens in your whole entire life is that somebody says no to you, you're living a charmed life.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we make super, super clear. Everybody here should go and work in a car dealership for a few days or weeks. Every child should go work in a car dealership so that you have 20,000 people saying no to you every day. And it's great training. So what? You get rejected. I'm human. It's not great, but I'm living a charmed life. And I think that is the most important thing, just its context.
Okay, so let's put that. See, this is interesting. Alex, what do you say to that?
Yep, definitely had my fair share of rejection, I think. It sucks. But it usually leads to good stuff. From an education point of view, and I have 2 daughters, I know that I grapple sometimes with wanting to protect them from rejection, or if they don't want to go and do something that they find difficult, it's too easy sometimes to go, no, okay, I'll protect you from that because I love you. And so I think it's leaning in as a parent and as a leader, and parents are leaders, to do something you don't want to do for the greater good. So it's thinking about the long-term interests of your children rather than the short-term interests, and that's hard. And in my experience, some parents are really good at that. And sometimes I'm good at it, and some parents really struggle with that. And that goes back to that idea of, no, my child's my friend, or she is upset, and I want to protect him from doing that thing. So no, he doesn't need to be in the play that he's rehearsed weeks for because he's scared about stage fright. You've got to push your kids in the deep end. And so I think rejection is something we got to embrace, but it's one of life's tough stuff, but it teaches us so much.
Sarah?
I mean, of course, rejection is difficult. We're all human, but I think there's a both and here. I read some report that looked at what humans, all of us, are most afraid of, and there are 2 big things that come up. The first is the fear of rejection and being judged.
Yeah.
And the second, which is a longer term fear, is the fear of regret, of not doing what you wanted to do with your life.
Yes.
And I think what's really important is harnessing that second fear and using it as fuel to do the stuff that is going to put you out there and risk rejection and risk being judged, because that deeper fear of the regret for missed opportunities or not living the life that you knew you were capable of, I think is, they turn that into a positive energy and then use that to try new things.
Very good. Mac?
I learned something about 15 years ago about non-attachment. And whenever I meet someone, I practice non-attachment before the meeting. So I go into a meeting very conscious, not wanting anything. And it's amazing. It changes how much you actually get by having non-attachment. So that's the first thing. But the second, to your point, which is, and we shared, I was sharing a story about Steve Jobs, which you can see on YouTube. When he was 12 years old, he wanted to make this frequency counter, and he needed the parts. And he got his phone book out, and he found Hewlett from Hewlett Packard, and phoned him up in the phone book on a Sunday afternoon and said, "My name's Steve Jobs, I'm 12 years old. I'd like to," and he ended up becoming mentored by Hewlett, and it was an amazing part of his journey. And he says, if you want to change things, you've got to have the courage to ask. So you've got to do that, but then if you can do it from a non-attached place, it doesn't hurt. And then the third thing is that whenever I ask a question, I phrase it in a way that it's really easy to say no. And again, it's quite counterintuitive. You end up nearly always getting a yes. So those are my 3 little things. You've got to ask for help to change the world. You've got to ask, but if you practice non-attachment and always phrase things in a way that it's really easy to say no, they will feel much more willing to say yes.
That's lovely. Tessa, bring us home.
So I obviously trained to be a solicitor, where you're under pressure to get everything right. And I remember the first big case I did. It was a children's case. And it was a 5-day hearing in court. And we succeeded. But the thing that stuck with me is at the end, the judge actually looked at me and said, yes, but the initial letter you wrote to the other side could have been avoided, couldn't it? It was something along those lines. And I thought, oh. And actually, it was a letter that my boss had helped me draft as well. But I did feel incredibly, it stuck with me. And then a few years later, I was doing a counselling course and I had some feedback on one of the assignments I'd written. And it said, remember, Tessa, 100% perfection is not possible, but it is expected of lawyers. And these things have just stuck with me as I've gone along because I have been a bit of a perfectionist. So launching your own charity, when it's your own personal vision, rejection is really hard because you take it personally and you have to learn not to. And that has been an incredible journey for me. And I used to take it to heart. We will get rejected, say, for funding because we work in schools in curriculum time. My argument is, well, that's when we get all the children. They're there. So the percentages of each disadvantaged group go up. And there was one point when I did say, right, that's it, we're just going to have to change the model. And someone said to me, no, Tessa, your model is working, you stick with it. So someone did say that to me. And what I do now is if we get, funding applications rejected, as an example, I will actually return to my vision that I spoke about today, the purpose of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and actually I'll learn from that rejection, and often I move on pretty swiftly now and move on to the next thing that fulfills that vision and try not to dwell on that rejection. And I hope in the way that I do that, that will start passing through to the team as well, because yes, I am honest with the team. I don't tell them about every single application, but they'll get the general idea when funding might be tough. Or actually, I will also tell them when funding's going really well. They will get the highs and they'll also get those lows. So it has been a bit of a journey for me going from that training in law through to quite a creative personal charity as well.
Thank you. Literally 10 seconds.
So I just think if in education and life, if you experience rejection and there's a leadership vacuum, it's brutal. But if you experience rejection and you have leadership and warmth around you, it's positive.
Beautiful, beautiful. Fantastic insights. Rejection. I know all about rejection, being an actor and then becoming a partner. I understand that. We won't go there. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel, please give them a round of applause. Thank you.